As a recovering Baptist preacher's daughter, I'm always a little nervous about performing on church grounds. But I figure if Donald Trump wasn't struck dead during that evangelical prayer circle in the Oval Office last week, I'm probably okay. Like I said, I am a preacher's daughter, and yes, thank you for the sympathy. And I grew up with very, very strict parents. For reference, you can think that they were somewhere between Crazy Mrs. Kim on the Gilmore Girls and the dad in Footloose. There was no rock music, there was no dancing, and sadly, there was no Kevin Bacon. And when I was a kid, we lived in Texas for a while when I was growing up. You can see I still have the big hair, and the higher the bangs, the closer to God. And the only thing that people in Texas take more seriously than football as a religion is actual religion. Personally, I think the biggest problem with Texas Baptists is that we just don't hold them underwater long enough. If we do get struck by lightning tonight, my bad. My parents were so strict, we weren't even allowed to watch Star Wars. Can you believe that? Star Wars? Did not get to see Star Wars till I went to college, and I fell in love. I love sci-fi. And unlike a lot of Star Wars fans, I also love Star Trek. And I firmly believe that those two universes can collide. Because if you put a tribble on Jabba the Hutt's head, you've got Donald Trump. Although I spent some of my formative years in Texas, I am actually from West Virginia. And I have heard every West Virginia joke you can think of. What has 200 feet, 32 teeth, and 15 pairs of shoes? The checkout line in any West Virginia Walmart. What do a West Virginia divorce, and a meth lab explosion have in common? Somebody's losing a trailer. True story. My sister's in-laws, when she got married, my sister's in-laws had the same last name before they were married. Today, to be safe, her 20-year-old son sets his Tinder matches 50 miles out. Just hedging his bets. They actually called me a few months ago, and asked me to take a look at the family tree and figure out if my niece's prom date was far enough away. Right? Yeah. My mom is the one who's from West Virginia. My very, very Irish dad is from Chicago. They imported him for fresh DNA. And my mother had no idea that she was part Irish herself until she and my dad had been married for a couple of months and their first St. Patrick's Day rolled around. And he explained to her, I'm Irish, I want, corned beef and cabbage and the whole 9 yards. And she looks at him and she says, Irish? I thought the Irish were extinct, just like the Vikings. That is the West Virginia public school system in action, folks. But I will tell you, not to completely denigrate my home state, I will tell you that growing up in West Virginia has given me some skills that have come in handy from time to time. A few months ago, the latch on my car door failed. Couldn't get the door to close, couldn't drive with it like that. And I was by myself in a Publix parking lot. I called the dealership and they said, well, you've got to get it here to us. Yeah, it's under recall, we'll replace it, but you've got to get it to us. I didn't want to wait for a tow truck. I have AAA, but blazing sun, 3 hours, forget it. So I got creative. And I tied that car door shut and I got it to the dealership myself with a pair of Dollar Tree pantyhose. That is some redneck engineering right there. And funny thing, when I picked the car up, the nice fellas at Ford had left them tied to the headrest for me. I don't know why, but they did. People always want to know how a nice girl like me wound up in South Florida. And the truth is, like a lot of people, I came to the University of Miami back in the dark ages, so go Canes. And when I was a UM student, I majored in political science. If I had it to do over again, I would go back and major in criminology. And today, they're pretty much the same thing. I will say, though, even though I've been here for a long time, I still have a very, very hard time with the heat. It kills me. I can't do the sun. I hate the heat. I break out into a sweat over 65 degrees. Irish people do not do the heat. We don't do the sun. All the stories you've ever heard about vampires bursting into flames at sunlight, Irish people at the beach.